Let me tell you something about the day we discovered humanity. And no, I am not exaggerating when I say it was the funniest thing to happen in the Galactic Council in 3 centuries. My name is Commander Zelthak, 3rd Fleet Admiral of the Corvinian Empire, and I have seen a lot of ridiculous things in my 40 years of service. I have watched the Blorthan delegation try to declare war using interpretive dance. I have seen Senator Quillip accidentally eat his own speech notes because his species cannot tell the difference between paper and food. I have even survived the great cafeteria incident of 2247 when someone introduced Varelian spice pods to the salad bar and half the council spent 3 days hallucinating. But nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, prepared me for humanity. The emergency session was called on a Tuesday. Well, Tuesday in human terms. We do not actually use their calendar, but honestly, their insistence on naming days after ancient gods is exactly the kind of thing I am talking about. Who does that? Seriously, who looks at a perfectly good planetary rotation and thinks, yeah, let us name this one after Thor? Anyway, the council chamber was packed, all 700 seats filled with representatives from every major civilization in the known galaxy. The Thoraxians, with their crystalline exoskeletons. Oh wait, I cannot say crystalline. Fine, the Thoraxians with their glittering rock bodies were there, looking perpetually annoyed as usual. The Malorians floated in their gravity bubbles, their tentacles twitching with curiosity. Even the Xanthori showed up, and they literally never show up to anything unless there is free food involved. High Chancellor Vokrin stood at the central podium, his 3 eyes gleaming with barely suppressed amusement. He is a haploran, which means he is about 9 feet tall, has skin like purple leather, and absolutely loves drama. He cleared his throat, or whatever passes for a throat in his anatomy, and began. "Distinguished members of the council," he said, his voice booming through the translation matrix. "We have made contact with a new species." Polite applause. Standard procedure. We make contact with new species about twice a year, so this was not exactly breaking news. They call themselves. Vokrin paused for dramatic effect, and I swear he was trying not to laugh. Humans. More polite applause. A few curious murmurs. They originate from a planet called Earth, located in the unfashionable end of the Orion Spur, Class M planet. Single moon. Approximately 4.5 billion years old. Standard stuff so far. I was already planning my afternoon nap. Then Vokrin activated the holographic display and everything went sideways. The first image showed a pale blue planet, pretty enough I suppose, covered in water and clouds. Nothing special. The second image showed the dominant species, and that is when the first chuckle started rippling through the chamber. They were tiny, barely 6 feet tall on average. They had thin skin with no natural armor plating, no claws, no venom sacs, no exoskeleton, no natural weapons at all. Actually, just soft, squishy bodies that looked like they would pop if you poked them too hard. They walked on 2 legs, had 2 arms, and their faces had this bizarre symmetry that made them look perpetually surprised. They have been sending radio signals into space for approximately 130 of their years, Vokrin continued, clearly enjoying himself now. And recently they launched a probe containing what they call a golden record. He activated the audio file. Now, I have heard a lot of alien music, the haunting resonance songs of the Coalish, the mathematical precision of Thoraxian tone matrices, the absolutely unlistenable screeching that the Blorthans insist is opera. But this was something else entirely. A primitive stringed instrument twanged to life, followed by a rhythmic percussion that sounded like someone hitting things with sticks. Then a voice, warbling and enthusiastic, began singing about, and I am not making this up,
"Oh."
A person named Johnny playing a guitar in a place called Louisiana. The council chamber erupted in laughter. Senator Quillip fell off his chair. Ambassador Thrin was laughing so hard her translator started sparking. Even the normally stoic Malorians were rippling with what I can only describe as aquatic giggles. "They sent this," Vokrin said, wiping his eyes, "as their introduction to the galaxy, as a representation of their entire civilization. A song by someone named Chuck Berry about a boy and his guitar." I have to admit, I was laughing too. It was absurd. Completely, totally absurd. "What else do we know about them?" someone shouted from the back. Vokrin pulled up more data. "They have been having wars with each other for their entire recorded history. They still use chemical combustion for most of their energy needs. Their fastest spacecraft would take 70,000 years to reach their nearest star. They have only left their planet 12 times, never going farther than their own moon. And, he paused again, savoring this part. They sent greetings in 55 languages because they cannot agree on a single one. The laughter intensified. Their average lifespan is 80 years, Vokran added. Their reaction time is sluggish. Their physical strength is laughable compared to galactic standards. They require a very specific range of temperature, pressure, and atmospheric composition to survive, and they somehow think they are ready for galactic citizenship. I leaned back in my seat, shaking my head. This was too good. The galaxy had just discovered its newest comedy routine. So, Ambassador Krail stood up, his scales glinting under the chamber lights. What do we do with them? Ignore them. They will burn themselves out in a few centuries anyway. No, Vokran said, and I could see the mischievous gleam in all three of his eyes. I propose we invite them to join the galactic community, as probationary members, of course. The chamber went quiet. Then someone started clapping. Then everyone was clapping and laughing and cheering. It was perfect. Absolutely perfect. We would invite these soft little creatures to play with the big kids. We would watch them stumble around completely out of their depth, providing entertainment for decades. They would be the galactic equivalent of a pet that does silly tricks. The vote was unanimous. As I left the chamber that day, I remember thinking how lucky we were. Finally, something interesting to break up the monotony of galactic politics. These humans with their primitive music and fragile bodies were going to be hilarious. That was 5 years ago. I was so very wrong. The human ambassador arrived 6 months after the council vote, and honestly, he looked exactly like I expected. Disappointing. Marcus Webb walked into the central station docking bay wearing what I later learned was called a suit. Dark blue fabric, completely inadequate for any kind of combat situation, with a strip of decorative cloth hanging from his neck that served absolutely no functional purpose. He was carrying a briefcase in one hand and a travel container in the other that was apparently filled with something called coffee, which I would soon learn was humanity's liquid obsession. He was maybe 5'10", graying hair at the temples, lines around his eyes that suggested he had not slept properly in about a decade. His posture screamed exhaustion. He looked like he had already fought 3 battles that morning and lost all of them. The welcoming committee could barely contain themselves. Ambassador Krail leaned over to me, his scales clicking with amusement. That is their representative? He looks half dead already. Give him some credit, I muttered back. He made it all the way here without his ship falling apart. That is impressive for their technology level. Webb approached the reception platform and High Chancellor Vokran extended his hand in the human greeting gesture we had been briefed on. Webb shook it, took a long sip from his coffee container and said in perfect galactic standard, "Thank you for having me. I apologize in advance for everything I am about to do." That got a few confused looks. Was that a joke? A threat? A statement of incompetence? "Welcome, Ambassador Webb," Vokran said smoothly. "We are delighted to welcome humanity to the galactic stage." "Sure you are," Webb said, his face completely expressionless. "I read the council transcripts. You voted us in as entertainment. It is fine. We know what we are." The silence was spectacular. You could have heard a pin drop in that docking bay. Then Webb smiled, just slightly. "Besides, we have been the punchline of our own jokes for thousands of years. You are going to have to try harder to offend us." And just like that, he had everyone off balance. Over the next 3 weeks, Webb attended every standard diplomatic function, and each time he showed up, he looked progressively more tired and somehow more alert at the same time. He drank coffee constantly. He made strange references to things called spreadsheets and conference calls. He complained about time zones even though he was no longer on Earth. But here is the thing. He never lost. Not once. The real test came at the Tri-Point Trade Summit, and I had a front row seat to watch this soft little human get absolutely demolished by the galaxy's best negotiators. The summit was held in the Nexus Conference Hall, a massive space station orbiting the neutral world of Keplara 7. The objective was simple. 3 major trade routes needed new agreements. Dozens of civilizations had competing interests. Fortunes would be made or lost based on who controlled shipping access, tariff structures, and resource allocation. Humanity wanted in on Route 72, the lucrative corridor that connected the manufacturing hubs of the inner rim to the agricultural worlds of the outer colonies. It was worth trillions, and 3 of the galaxy's most ruthless negotiators were determined to keep the humans out. Senator Dravik of the Kryn Federation. 200 years of diplomatic experience, famous for once negotiating a trade deal so favorable that the other party did not realize they had been bankrupted until 6 months later. Ambassador Yalira of the Cassian Union. Telepathic species, could read emotional states and exploit psychological weaknesses with surgical precision. Trade Minister Gorvan of the Talesian Commonwealth. His species literally evolved as pack hunters. They negotiated like they hunted, wearing down opponents through relentless pressure and coordinated attacks. And then there was Marcus Webb, who showed up 20 minutes late with coffee stains on his shirt. Gentlemen, lady, assorted beings, Webb said, dropping into his chair with a heavy sigh. Let us get this over with. I have a very important appointment with my hotel bed in 4 hours. Dravik opened with the standard power move. Ambassador Webb, perhaps you are unaware of the complexity of Route 72. It has taken decades to establish the current framework. Introducing a new party, especially one with humanity's limited experience, would destabilize everything. Webb nodded slowly. You are absolutely right. We have no idea what we are doing. Everyone blinked. That was not the expected response. Our ships are slow, Webb continued, counting on his fingers. Our cargo capacity is embarrassing. Our logistics network is held together with duct tape and prayers. We are a terrible choice for this route. Yalira leaned forward, her sensory tendrils twitching as she tried to read his emotional state. Then why are you here, Ambassador? Because, Webb said, taking another sip of coffee, you need us more than we need you. Gorvan actually laughed. That is absurd. What could humanity possibly offer that we cannot get elsewhere? Webb pulled out a datapad and slid it across the table. That is a list of every labor dispute, shipping delay and logistics bottleneck that has occurred on Route 72 in the last 5 years. Notice anything interesting? I watched Dravik's face as he scanned the document. His expression shifted from amusement to confusion to something that might have been alarm. 63% of your delays, Webb said calmly, occur at Transfer Station Helios. Why? Because your 3 civilizations cannot agree on standardized container sizes. The Kryn use metric system alpha. The Cassians use volumetric scaling beta. The Talesians use whatever made sense to them 300 years ago. So every single shipment has to be repackaged. Twice. We have worked around that, Yalira said, but her tendrils were now very still. You have worked around it expensively, Webb corrected. You are losing 17% profit margin on every shipment because of incompatible systems. Now humans. We spent 2,000 years fighting each other over whose measurement system was better. We have 17 different languages for saying the same thing. We are experts at cobbling together incompatible systems and making them work anyway. He pulled out another document. Here is our proposal. We handle Transfer Station Helios. We take over the repackaging, sorting, and logistics coordination. You 3 keep your current profit margins and shipping volumes. We take a 5% cut of total route revenue for our services. 5%? Gorvan scoffed. For shuffling boxes. For shuffling boxes efficiently enough that your profit margins increase by 12%, Webb said. We did the math. Well, actually, a very tired intern named Kevin did the math, but it is solid. The next 2 hours were brutal. Dravik tried to intimidate. Yalira tried to manipulate. Gorvan tried to overwhelm. Webb countered every move with either data, self-deprecating humor, or by simply agreeing with their insults, and then explaining why that made him perfect for the job. At one point, Yalira accused humans of being too emotionally unstable for long-term contracts. Webb shrugged. You are absolutely right. We are emotional train wrecks. That is why we invented very detailed contracts with penalty clauses. We do not trust ourselves either. By the end, all 3 veteran negotiators looked confused, exhausted, and somehow convinced that giving humanity access to Route 72 was not only acceptable but necessary. Webb stood up, collected his datapads, and drained the last of his coffee. Pleasure doing business with you. I will have our legal team send over the contracts. They are very detailed because, as I mentioned, we do not trust ourselves. As he walked out, I caught his eye. He gave me the smallest, most knowing smile I have ever seen. That was the moment I realized we might have made a serious miscalculation about these humans. 8 months after the trade summit, I found myself on patrol duty in the Outer Rim, which is exactly as boring as it sounds. My flagship, the Retribution, was escorting a human cargo vessel through the Kronax corridor. Standard protection detail. The kind of assignment you give to junior officers who need to log flight hours. Except High Command decided that since I had been making all these sarcastic comments about humanity, I should personally babysit their first major shipping run on Route 72. The human ship was called the Pequod, which I later learned was named after a boat from one of their ancient stories about a crazy captain hunting a white whale. This should have been my first warning sign. Who names a spacecraft after a vessel that sank? Captain Lisa Torres was a short woman, maybe 5'5", with dark hair pulled back in a severe ponytail and eyes that looked like they had seen too much. She was 43 years old, which meant she was already past middle age by human standards. She had laugh lines around her eyes and a coffee mug that said, "I have neither the time nor the crayons to explain this to you." We had briefed her on the Kronax pirates, standard operating procedure. They occasionally hit cargo ships in this sector. Small nuisance. Nothing my crew could not handle. If they show up, I told her over the comm link, just stay behind us. We will deal with them. Your ship is not equipped for combat. Torres looked at me like I had just told her water was wet. Yeah, I know. We are flying a cargo hauler with improvised shield generators and weapons that barely qualified as dangerous. We will stay out of your way. Good, I said, already bored with this conversation. Probably, she added. What? We will probably stay out of your way, Torres clarified. But you know how it is. Plans and first contact with the enemy and all that. I should have paid more attention to that comment. 3 hours into the patrol, the Kronax hit us. 5 ships, mid-range raiders, dropped out of hyperspace right on top of our formation. Classic ambush positioning. They were probably expecting easy prey. My tactical officer started barking reports. 5 hostiles, Marauder class. They are targeting the human vessel. Of course they were. The Pequod looked like the easiest target. Slow, lightly armed, crewed by those fragile little humans who would probably surrender immediately. All ships, combat formation Delta. I ordered. Put ourselves between the raiders and the Pequod. Charge weapons. The Kronax opened fire. Plasma bolts streaked across space. My shields held easily. We returned fire and one of their ships took a direct hit. Shields flaring. Human vessel, stay behind our defensive screen, I said into the comm. Copy that, Torres replied. Her voice was calm. Too calm. We are staying right here. Definitely not moving. This is us, staying put. Then the Pequod's engines flared to full power, and she accelerated directly toward the Kronax formation. What are you doing? I shouted. Staying put really fast, Torres said cheerfully. Hang on, crew. This is going to be stupid. I watched completely frozen as this unarmed cargo ship charged directly at 5 pirate vessels like a deranged missile. The Kronax clearly thought the humans had malfunctioned. They adjusted their fire, targeting the Pequod with enough firepower to vaporize it 3 times over. The cargo ship juked left, then right, then executed a roll that should have torn the ship apart. Plasma bolts passed through empty space where the Pequod had been milliseconds before. Crazy human piloting, my helmsman muttered. Torres was not done. The Pequod fired its cargo thrusters, all of them, in a completely uncontrolled burn. The ship spun like a top, and suddenly it was flying backward while still moving forward, and I have no idea how that is even possible. Then she opened her cargo bay doors. Torres, what are you carrying? I demanded. Officially, agricultural equipment, she said. I could hear the grin in her voice. Unofficially, we might have accidentally loaded a few containers of industrial mining explosives. Clerical error. Very embarrassing. She ejected the cargo. 50 tons of mining explosives tumbled out into space, directly into the path of the pursuing Kronax ships. Then Torres fired a single pulse from her pathetic excuse for a laser cannon. The explosion was magnificent. And by magnificent I mean absolutely terrifying. 2 Kronax ships were caught in the blast. Their shields overloaded instantly. One ship went spinning out of control, venting atmosphere. The other just stopped existing. The 3 remaining pirates tried to regroup, but Torres was already moving again. She killed her engines completely, letting momentum carry her, then fired maneuvering thrusters in a pattern that made my navigator physically ill just watching it. The Pequod drifted through the debris field, grabbed a chunk of destroyed raider with her loading clamps and then fired her engines again, using the debris as a makeshift battering ram. "This is the worst plan I have ever seen," I said out loud. "Thank you," Torres replied. "We workshopped it over lunch." She slammed the debris into another Kronax ship. Their shields held, but the impact sent them tumbling. My gunners took advantage and finished them off. The last 2 pirates decided discretion was the better part of valor and jumped to hyperspace. Silence filled the command deck of the Retribution. Every single one of my officers was staring at the view screen like they had just witnessed something impossible. Torres' voice crackled over the comm. "Hard code to Retribution. We are experiencing minor hull damage, 17 system failures and at least 3 fires. But we are still here. How are you guys doing?" "How?" I said slowly. "Are you still alive?" "Spite, mostly," Torres said. "Also, we had a really good breakfast this morning. Never underestimate the power of pancakes before a fight." "You could have been killed," I said. "That maneuver, the explosives, the debris ram, all of it, any one of those things could have destroyed your ship." "Yeah, probably," Torres agreed. "But here is the thing, Commander, and I mean this with utmost respect. We did not come all the way out here, across thousands of light years, in ships held together with optimism and coffee, just to run away from a few pirates." She paused, and when she spoke again her voice had an edge to it that made my spine stiffen. "We are from Earth. Do you know what Earth is? It is a planet that has tried to kill us every single day for 300,000 years. Predators, diseases, weather, other humans, all of it. We are not the strongest species, we are not the fastest, we are not the smartest, but we are absolutely without question, the most stubborn. We do not quit, we do not surrender. We adapt, we improvise, and we keep going until either we win or we are dead." My tactical officer pulled up the damage report on the Pequod. 17 hull breaches, life support running at 40%, weapons offline, engines damaged. They should have retreated after the first hit. "Captain Torres," I said quietly, "you just took on 5 pirate ships with a cargo hauler." "Yeah," she said, "we probably should not have done that. My crew is going to file so many safety complaints. But we are alive, the cargo is intact, and those pirates are going to think twice before messing with humans again." As I watched the Pequod limp toward the nearest repair station, trailing debris and venting gas but still flying, I had a terrible realization. We had been laughing at humanity's weakness, their fragile bodies, their short lifespans, their primitive technology. But we had completely missed the point. They were not weak. They were camouflaged. Every species in the galaxy evolved to survive their home world. We got armor, or venom, or telepathy, or natural weapons. Humans got something worse. They got the absolute, unshakable, insane refusal to accept that they had lost. They came from a death world, and they brought the death world mentality with them. I filed my report that night, and for the first time since we discovered humanity, I was not laughing. I was worried. 5 years. That is all it took for humanity to stop being the punchline and become the entire conversation. I am sitting in my office right now, on the flagship that I have commanded for 2 decades, and I am drinking coffee, human coffee, from Earth, with something called cream and sugar, which objectively makes no sense because why would you add fat and sweetener to a stimulant beverage? But here I am drinking it anyway, because apparently I have completely lost my mind. And I am not alone. Last week I walked past the crew recreation room and found 30 of my officers, hardened Corvinian warriors, watching something called Die Hard for the 8th time. They were cheering when the human protagonist, a man named John McClane who was barefoot and bleeding for most of the film, defeated an entire group of heavily armed terrorists using nothing but spite and one-liners. "This is tactically unsound," I told them. "Yes, sir," Lieutenant Kren said, not taking his eyes off the screen. "But it is amazing. The Galactic Entertainment Network's top 10 programs, 6 of them are from Earth. The #1 show is something called the Great British Baking Show, which is literally just humans making pastries and being polite to each other. No combat, no stakes, just cake, and the entire galaxy is obsessed with it. Senator Quillip told me last month that he has watched every episode twice. The food situation is even worse. There is a human restaurant on every major station now. They serve things called pizza, tacos, and something named curry that originated from a place called India. The Malorians, who have extremely sensitive digestive systems, declared human food lethal. They have 3 human restaurants in their capital city now. They consider eating mild salsa a dare. Ambassador Yalira, the telepath who tried to manipulate Marcus Webb during the trade negotiations, now runs a human coffee shop. She says she finds the emotional chaos of caffeine addiction soothing. I do not understand anything anymore. But the real shift, the one that truly proves we miscalculated, is military doctrine. 3 months ago, the Galactic Defense Academy added a mandatory course called Asymmetric Warfare, Human Style. They teach tactics with names like Controlled Chaos, Aggressive Improvisation, and the Tories Maneuver, which is apparently the official term for using your own cargo as a weapon. Captain Torres is a guest lecturer now. She shows up to the academy, drinks coffee, and teaches aspiring officers how to win fights they should lose. Her opening lecture is always the same. Rule 1, she says. Your enemy expects you to follow the rules. Do not follow the rules. Young cadets from species that have been fighting wars for millennia hang on her every word. Humanity holds seats on 4 major councils now. They broker trade agreements. They mediate disputes. Ambassador Webb somehow became the go-to negotiator for conflicts that have been going on for centuries. Last year he resolved a territorial dispute between the Vrelians and the Korthans that had been deadlocked for 90 years. His solution? He pointed out that both sides were arguing over a moon that neither of them actually wanted. They just did not want the other side to have it, so he suggested they turn it into a joint vacation resort. It opens next month. The marketing calls it neutral ground with excellent beaches. I requested a meeting with Webb last week. I needed to understand. How did they do it? How did this species, this ridiculous, fragile, short-lived species, go from galactic joke to galactic power in 5 years? We met at his office, which is decorated with posters from Earth movies, and a plant that he insists is dying but refuses to throw away because he is emotionally attached to it. Commander Zelthak, Webb said, gesturing to a chair. Coffee? Yes, I admitted. Black, 2 sugars. He poured 2 cups and sat down across from me, looking exactly as tired as the day he arrived 5 years ago. You want to know how we did it, he said. It was not a question. Yes. Webb smiled that same small, knowing smile from the trade summit. Commander, do you remember what I said when I first arrived? I apologized in advance for everything I was about to do. I remember. We knew exactly what you thought of us, Webb said calmly. We read the council transcripts. We watched the recordings. We saw you laughing and we made a decision. He took a sip of coffee. We decided to let you underestimate us. Every single time. We showed up looking tired, flying ships that barely worked, making jokes about our own incompetence. We let you think we were the underdog, the comic relief, the species that did not belong. The Toritomic relief, the species that did not belong. But you were never the underdog, I said slowly. No, Webb agreed. We were the species that survived Earth. A planet with megafauna that wanted to eat us, diseases that wanted to kill us, weather that tried to freeze or boil us, and other humans who definitely wanted to murder us. We spent 300,000 years learning how to win fights we should lose. We got very, very good at it. He leaned forward. You know what the best weapon in the galaxy is, Commander? It is not plasma cannons or shield technology or telepathy. It is being underestimated. When your enemy thinks you are weak, they get careless. They make mistakes. They leave openings. And we, humans, we have built our entire civilization on exploiting those openings. I sat there holding my coffee, finally understanding. They did not conquer us with strength. They conquered us by making us laugh, making us comfortable, making us think they were harmless. And by the time we realized what was happening, they were already essential, already irreplaceable, already winning. So what now? I asked. Webb shrugged. Now? We keep doing what we have always done. We survive. We adapt. We make friends, we drink too much coffee, and we absolutely refuse to quit. It has worked pretty well for us so far. I finished my coffee, stood up, and extended my hand in the human gesture. Webb shook it. "Welcome to the galaxy, Ambassador," I said. "Thank you, Commander," Webb replied. "We are happy to be here, even if you did vote us in as entertainment." As I walked out of his office, I heard him chuckle. The cosmic joke, it turns out, was on us the entire time. And somehow I am okay with that. Probably because of the coffee. Definitely because of the coffee.